If you were not dead, I wouldn't feel the need to have a vanilla slice on your birthday. There wouldn't be a collage of you in my room. I would measure life with a different tape. I wouldn't wonder who might be dead every time my phone rings, and I might turn it off at night sometimes. I wouldn't search for your reflection in your brother's face or listen for you in his laugh. Our gravy would be so much better, and my days would still be made by you letting me dip the bread in. I wouldn't have said the word dead so many times, and if I'm honest, probably wouldn't have learnt to drive. I wouldn't unpick my feelings for people by imagining my reactions to their death. I wouldn't worry how much I think about you or snap a twig every time someone says no one's died. My brother wouldn't have dug a grave or carried you on his shoulders, and Mum wouldn't have had to do all the parent taxi trips, and your room, her room, probably wouldn't be pink. I wouldn't know that last breaths can sound so conflicted. There would be no blankets made of your clothes, and everything would be a little bit louder. I wouldn't know how heavy love can be when it is returned to sender, and I would recognise the pattern of your pride without having to take other people's word for it, because you might be watching this, laughing at the end of a happier list.
"12 weeks weary brought me here. Standing tall for eyes red late night shopping with you in your fur waterfall. Unkempt, the climate, you said. I bought wine that night. Walked you halfway home. Half gentleman, half coward was half of what I meant to say, 'cause I saw you straight away. And I knew no fucking chance. Then there were those days where we saw me. Arms spread wide for wind, wound up, working at waiting to take off and leave this place, but sincerely hoping we were set to stay. It's why, I think, you always kept on at me to keep on going, laced with that intense cliff-hanging teaser suspense, yet never really wondered why half the shit I said didn't make any sense. Last time I was that high, I slammed the door on my hand. Ink blue bruises climbing all the way up to paint past my knuckle before I realised I am not an observant man. It's why it took me so long to see sweet bruises in your fingers, reaching out to paint pictures of romance sunsets, slow dancing wedding receptions, and post-toilet seat left up argument sex, all packaged and posed as a question. Next. Reading the stutter steps that fell from my lips, you caught me by the bootstraps, stopped me from falling. It's why I find myself busting mid-sleep heads off walls and calling out your name. 'Cause I never meant to play those Groundhog Day games with you, going for start over and rinse and repeat our feelings till we're both just kneeling, begging to know what the other one wants. Scratching notes into the backs of our hidden handholds, you wrote, "It takes 4 seconds for us to fall. 4 years to forget about it." And I try to scratch back notes of words or poems I've yet to think through, but the half of me that wasn't weak wouldn't write, forced me to find new ways to speak, ways that might let me shout best, let me jump upon your sharp swords. Yeah? Let me take your burdens onto my chest. Let me call it poetry in surgery in motion, when they carve through oceans of our mess to see if my heart beats even half as hard as yours does. Ribs xylophoning out my chest, breastplate spinning, jumping on jacked up defibrillator dancing, and you, you could read the braille that rounds my eyes. Finger paint the age lines that script what it all means to me, so you called me halfway man. 'Cause half the time I open these and see an empty room of people I am far too scared to smile to, looking back at me, questioning the methods that come to me naturally and holding out hands to shake that have never seen bruises. Smart people could be whatever they choose because they never had to lose everything that they had worked for to prove they were not the bad guy. So call me halfway mad, because I promise I am really doing my very level best to stand, hold hands, and play professional about the fact that you live 1.761 thousand miles away from me by car, and I still do not own a car. So call me halfway man. Halfway man holds out his hand, trying to make up the distance. Halfway man holds up his hands, trying to make up the difference. So I promise, I never meant to fuck up, drop everything, come running that night. Sharp swords and fur waterfalls have taught me far better than that, but I remember, alone in our home, learning the real names of lives we led, healing the hurt scars of the nearly dead, and crying out pieces of ourselves, hearts pounding from fearing of falling, picking up pace, pulse punching through veins, beat racing with the need to breathe. Please, believe me, it was worth it. I remember that heartbeat because I heard it. Past every cigarette smoked alone in your room, Pall Mall fumes climbing all the way up your silent solitude. I heard it shout, I love you. And I whispered back, yeah, me too. Det är ju bäst, ragga med.
When Fat Banks finds us, sprawled across the floor, wrestling in laughter for the third time in 10 minutes, we stand heads down to hide the grins, straining against all this chest swell as he quietly whispers his threats, slipper in hand. We are hoping he will leave before the giggle loop gets us. It is in these moments that we begin to laugh our way into each other's histories, creating spaces inside each other's bodies that will forever hold a part of this untamed joy. Every conversation, every new friend built on the foundations of what we learnt here. That it doesn't take much. It can be as simple as two guys conversing with ceiling tiles we know by name now, knowing that in 10 years we will meet in a park in Sheffield, or the mountains of France, or an abandoned Whitechapel brewery, a dingy Shoreditch nightclub where we will call each other Bush Baby and discuss how poetry has suddenly found us in such different ways, and we will forget the years spent silent through distance, and we will laugh and dance and sing, and not just because of the booze or the drugs, but because there is something so intractable about spending years growing beside someone, about the way in which you grow like climbing plants, how the shape of who they are imprints itself on the shape of who you are until you stand on separate continents, contorted reflections of the friends you once were, and therefore always will be. Thank you.